Welcome to today's episode of Women in Research. My name is Esther Nekesa, your host. And today we've been joined by a lovely guest who has a very interesting line. She said before we started recording, she said, environment is the future. So I got curious. I hope you are too. Welcome, Dr. Parita Shah. Please introduce yourself for the purpose of our audience.
Thank you very much. My name is Parita Shah, and I teach at the Department of Geography, Population and Environmental Studies at the University of Nairobi. I do both teaching and research.
All right. So, Dr. you said environment is the future. Just before we started recording, can you please elaborate a little bit on that?
Nekesa, look at it. Is there life without the environment? Can you breathe without the environment? Can you survive without the environment? You need food, water. All that is part of the environment. So definitely there is no future without the environment. And that is why we have been having multilateral environmental agreements at global level on environmental issues to safeguard them. Because if you look around the world today, we are faced with so many issues. Climate change, the heat you can see, and the extremes, floods, droughts, famines, hurricanes, typhoons, pollution of the waters, of the skies.
Okay. So what has been your research based on? Like, what's your specific area of study?
My area of study is biodiversity, and that is more to do with the living life around us, both terrestrial and aquatic. That means life on land and life in water.
What can you tell us more about, how it impacts our everyday life, our community? Apart from, I know you've told us about the environment, and yes, it is life, but now specifically your area of research and how the research output impacts the everyday Mwananchi.
Sure. Basically, if you look at our biodiversity, Kenya is so rich in terms of its biodiversity. We have over 70 national parks and national reserves, and most of them are concentrated around population areas. And this is so interesting. A layman will actually tell me, but that's not good because it brings in human-wildlife conflict. But believe me, that is where everything starts. That is where ecotourism starts. That is where jobs for the community starts. That's where education is, research is, and all the dynamics for sustainable growth are actually centered around our national parks and reserves. Yes.
Okay, so as you're continuing studying in this field, what can you say is tomorrow's question? Like, for instance, a PhD candidate right now, what are the possible areas of study? What questions haven't we answered in that field?
Basically, a PhD student should actually ask, what is the gap which is making people not understand the importance of conservation and sustainability? For example, for any country to develop, it's very important to have infrastructure. But then the question here is, does this very infrastructure need to pass through our national parks and reserves, like the standard gauge railway, the bypass?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good debate, and I'm sure it's somewhere in the books. And okay, so my question is, how did you end up there, Dr.
That's a very interesting question, Nekesa, because I actually started my career teaching in a primary school. And that was I taught there for 13 years, and I started by teaching.
Primary school?
Yes. I started by teaching a standard 1 class. I always had a passion to teach, and I used to give tuitions whenever I was free, because I used to see my mom doing that, and I had a very nice literature and English teacher who was so composed, so calm, and the way I would see him, I wanted to duplicate him
Okay.
and be a mentor to the society.
Yeah.
And he would always say, Parita, you are a very good writer, you've got very good ideas, put them across. And then believe it, I'm a GCE student.
All right.
I did KCPE, but then I moved to the British curriculum. And there, environment was introduced to us in Form 3, but we were never taught that in geography. Towards the end, when we were having exams in Form 4, the teacher just came and said, you know, you have to go and read about the natural environment, and it's going to be there in your exams, both in your mocks and in your final. I wondered, what is this? Something very new, never heard of it much. And I thought of it. I said, we have the United Nations Environment Program here.
Oh, nice.
I think I can go and walk into the library and see what it offers. And I think God has walked with me, because when I went to the UN, I met a very good gentleman called Paul Okwaro. And he said, you want to learn about the environment? Come, I will help you. I will give you these books. Go read about them, about the environmental issues, the current contemporary issues. Learn about them. Whenever you're stuck, come to me. I will explain to you and I will help you. He gave me series of books and books and books. And that is where I picked my love for the natural environment.
All right.
And it continued in A levels. I did geography, but there was very limited aspect of the natural environment in the GCE curriculum back then. However, I did not give up. I did geography, economics and accounts. And I actually wanted to continue with geography, but unfortunately my parents could not afford my school fees. So I got a sponsor who said you can go to India, and I actually went there, but I developed some real time issues and I came back. So that was a year wasted. And mom and dad are like, look for something here. I'm sure you can do something from here. So I came, I inquired at this beautiful university where I sit today, but I was told that because I had done A levels, they were not able to take me then. So I found out that University of London had distance learning. And that time I was not lucky like our students today who have access to emails and internet. At that time, that was in 94, 95, it was hardly there. So I registered with the University of London to do geography. And I'm like, okay, let me register, let me find out how. And you won't believe what I was sent was a topic outline with a list of reference books and past 3-year question papers. That was it. The onus was on me how I studied. And I'm like, will I really manage it? So I went back to my high school. I asked them if I could use their library, the Oswald library. I was told I could access the university library. That time I could sit and refer to the books. So that is how I did. Every day I would put in, I started with 6 hours of study on my own, and every day I would actually sit and do it. In between, because I had the 3 past year papers, I said I will do a mock for myself and see if I'm able to attempt. I asked my high school teacher if he would mark for me the papers, and he said he would. So he was actually a mentor. He is actually Mr. Gabriel from Makerere University, and he really helped me so much. And he would always then guide me, this is where you need to improve. And I admit I was lost for field work, because I really didn't know where to start, because it's different when you're in class and when you're doing it on your own. But he really guided me, and I did urban studies about how the Westlands area of Nairobi grew into a business center. And I finished within record 3 years, the usual 3 years, but some people even take 4 years. If they fail, they have to resit. And I was very lucky, because 1 year my exam center was the University of Nairobi. I remember the library used to be here down, and I actually sat for my exams here. Then once,
So yeah, I was about to ask, how were you examined?
yes, we had
the
centers.
Okay.
So once it was University of Nairobi, once it was the British Council, and once it was the Kenya National Examination Council.
Yeah.
So different areas, and it was really, really very strict, even the way those people used to administer the exams.
Yeah.
And I was myself, and there was somebody from Embu, but that time we didn't have mobile phones
Yeah,
also.
you
So I have no contact with that gentleman.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you graduate?
Yes, I graduated in 98, August 1998.
Distance?
I was invited, but I couldn't
you
afford,
went-
so I didn't go, but they sent me my certificate.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
So how did your journey continue?
After that, I applied for a job, and I was actually interested in teaching high school students.
Yeah.
And I wanted to serve my community, which is the Oshawa community,
Oh, yeah.
because I've gone to school for free because we couldn't afford. So they told me that the high school doesn't have a vacancy. I could start in the primary because they had quite many vacancies. I really thought primary, I've never taught the small kids, because you really need a lot of, besides preparation, you need training for it.
Yeah.
But I was told, we'll try you for 6 months. If we think that you're really good, we'll allow you to continue. I said, okay, I will try, because anyway, I want to go into teaching. I started, there was a teacher who had gone on sick leave, and I was given her class standard 2.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed, and parents were very happy. So the following year, I was made a class teacher of standard 1.
Wow.
And I had those beautiful kids to teach.
Yeah.
And after that, I was put into standard 3, standard 5, standard 7 was also there.
Wow.
And later on, I was told that you're really, really good in all the subjects. What is your speciality? So I said my speciality, as per my certificate, is geography.
Yeah.
I was told in primary school, they usually don't allow you to teach one subject. So
You have
I
to
said
teach them all.
history, geography. I was really passionate about history also, and English. And I was teaching our mother tongue Gujarati
Yeah.
and religious studies. So I took in those areas, and I taught there for 13 years. And in that journey, I actually did my master's while I was
While
still
you were
teaching there.
teaching in
Yes,
high
and
school.
I did it at
Nice.
this very beautiful University
So
of Nairobi.
you came here and you were physically in a class, you had your
Yes,
colleagues with
yes.
you. All right.
It was so interesting, because that was in 2007, and we were 16 students in a class.
Oh, wow.
For masters. It was totally something very interesting, and we had very good lecturers. You know, especially that evening time, 5:30 to 8:30. You really have to plan yourself,
Yeah.
because you're coming from work. You finish at 5. You have to rush to class from Westlands, coming all the way,
Yeah.
and then I was the class rep.
Oh, nice.
So it was so interesting
Yeah.
that time, and everybody in the class was so friendly. We had the best of lecturers today with whom I'm a colleague,
Yeah,
and it is
sure.
so nice.
So 13 years.
Yes, 13
How
years.
then did you end up at the University of Nairobi as a staff member?
It's very interesting, because the day I finished in a record-breaking time of 1.5 years my master's.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Do you
please.
remember your thesis topic in your master's?
Yes, it was environmental audits at the Oshawa Academy, where I was actually teaching.
Okay.
So I did on water, electricity. Yes, because I wanted to also give them information on where they could actually do savings in terms of the natural environmental context. Yes.
Okay, go on.
And so the day I actually presented my project, I could hear lecturers saying, we must take her on board. She's so passionate.
Okay.
And immediately they started calling me that, can you come and teach for us in the evening? And I said, yes, I will do. And I was actually inspired by my thematic head, by my mentor, Professor Francis Moura. He actually took me into his consultancy for NEMA. He was actually doing something for NEMA. And he said, please, I know you can work on these areas. That's where I captured my PhD topic on the domestication and application of biodiversity multilateral environmental agreements in Kenya.
I cannot repeat that.
It's all to do with global environmental policies trickling down at national level.
All right.
Yes.
That's better.
So from him, that is where I got my topic, and through he was my supervisor at Masters with Dr. Moronge, and he sailed with me through and through my PhD. When I registered in 2010. And 2011, I saw an advert in the newspaper, and I applied. I really didn't know I would be the lucky one God has chosen to come and teach here. But it just so happened that we were 7 of us in the interview also. And God wanted me here.
Okay.
So that is how I landed up here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long has it been so far?
13 years.
Wow. And in the 13 years, so you've just been a lecturer, okay, apart from, of course, a researcher. And I want to ask, how has been your growth, exposure? What's the difference between working, as a lecturer and the difference of working as a teacher, in other learning institutions?
It is very interesting because I always used to do research there also. Like because of Paul Okwaro and my networks with the UN, I was affiliated with their education department there also. And I met people who would encourage me to have an affiliation with the school and with the UN, where children were encouraged to join the United Nations Children's Environment Conference, which used to be held every 2 years at international levels. Sometimes even they would make it annually, provided they had the funding. And I was very lucky to be a chaperone for 16 students whom we took to USA. Yes, in 2004. Yes. And through all that, I was actually invited by the Visawashal community to join them on the side of the Karura Forest Environmental Education Trust, where I actually met the late Professor Wangari Maathai. She really inspired me so much. I was very lucky to have a one-to-one session where we are doing with her, and it had never crossed my mind that I would ever meet her. One-to-one. We had a meeting at the Shell BP house, and people were stuck in traffic. I was lucky to have left the workplace early, and she was also there early, and we had the best of that 1.5 hours together, where she really taught me the importance of being humble and being a grassroots person. And she inspired me to take up the journey of environmental education and conservation.
So as you're meeting students every other day in class, Dr. Ari, what are you telling them about geography, about the environment, apart from the curriculum? Do you have, things that you encourage them to take up?
Yes. I will quote the former President Obama's words: empower yourself and you will take a big step ahead. I always tell my students, there is nothing without food security. If you have food, you have everything. And during COVID, so many students later called me, sent me messages that we appreciate what you told us, because for most of our students who come to learn at this prestigious university, for all of them, they want to work in Nairobi, and they think Nairobi is a bed of roses. But I tell them, go back to your counties, go back home, develop your home. And if you have a shamba, you must take interest in that. And you must grow your own food, because there will be a time when you will have everything, even money, but if you will not have food, what will you do? Use your shambas, be self-empowering, be self-innovating, self-sufficient. Even today, this is the message I deliver. When tell them, whichever offices you sit in the future, please be self-sufficient. Never ignore the soil. and grow your own food, you will survive. And with that, I also tell them, be innovative. Think of solutions for every problem which you are seeing. Only then you will be able to move with the society and the changes. And mind you, Nekesa, everything is not about innovating using an app, because to our students, when you talk about innovation, the only thing they think is a link between mobile and something else. But indigenous knowledge is the biggest innovation which has been ignored. And when we talk about issues with climate change, we are told, what is the indigenous knowledge? Which crops can we grow with the climate change? And we are going back to the indigenous crops. Conservation. The people in the olden days used to know which route a lion is in, and they would change their path when they are going to get water or firewood. How did they know? By the footprints, by the sounds. But today, the youth has lost it out, and they really must capture this indigenous knowledge from their grandparents. Otherwise, this will be a lost generation. Even in the Convention on Biological Diversity, we have an obligation which refers to the use of indigenous knowledge. Even the UN Environment, they often talk about the nexus between science, policy and indigenous knowledge.
Sure. Yeah, that is so good. Wow, I was listening as the youth. Dr. Shah, so now tell me about your experiences in terms of growth, partnerships, opportunities that you've been able to take advantage of, or how you've been able to link up with other women researchers, other, the multidisciplinary approach. Who else do you work with?
Environment is too large, and as an environmentalist, you fit in anywhere. You fit anywhere, yes. I fit in journalism, I fit in economics, I fit in medical, anywhere, name it, and you fit. And everywhere, environment is the core, because even when you look at the medical world, without environment, there is no medicine, because you're using indigenous knowledge, the plants, to produce the medicine. Everywhere you need it. And at the department, we have a lot of network with the United Nations. We get our books, they help us with books. We work with quite many NGOs who are ready to take in our students to show them what they are doing. Like recently we had the Wildlife Works, where we have a student who is actually affiliated with a grant they have got. So these are the things we actually do. And my message to the youth, to the students, go and empower your communities. Build on the biodiversity which is there. Think of how it can be multiplied. Because if you look at Namibia and Botswana, it is the youth with the older generation who work together, where they have actually enhanced biodiversity numbers. Their numbers are multiplying, and that is where they have brought in a policy change. Before, they never used to allow hunting of wildlife, which one may say it is bad, but if you reach a threshold level and your numbers exceed, you can allow game hunting. That would also generate a lot of revenue for our communities and for this country. And that is what Namibia and Botswana are actually doing. They are allowing their numbers to multiply, and then when tourists come, they pay a very high level of fees, and that money, almost 75%, goes back to the development of the community. And this is where we are able to achieve the sustainable development goals, and you help enhance the communities from grassroots level.
As Dr. Shah the researcher? What's in it for you? What are you going for? What are you aiming for? What are you looking at in terms of growth?
I will still continue teaching and doing research, and my aim is actually to work with grassroots, with communities where they can actually protect biodiversity more. And just recently at this great university we had a faculty hackathon, and I actually shared my idea of how we can safeguard biodiversity better using science and indigenous knowledge, and that is what I'm aiming to see in the future, where both science and indigenous knowledge are being used together for the betterment of this country and Africa.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. What's your parting shot? What is that one thing that you feel like we haven't touched on or talked about, either from your journey or just an inspiration, something you've learned through your journey also you could share?
I have learned to be a humble person, and this is what I want to share with the youth, that every journey starts with one drop of water in the ocean, and that takes you to greater heights. And always, if you are humble, you will move to a greater height.
All right. Thank you so much. I just remembered a question I was to ask you, then it skipped my mind. In terms of CBC, in terms of the new curriculum, and now that we are preparing to receive students, what can you comment on about, the environmental studies, geography? What do they need to do for us to, be more impactful?
Thank you. In fact, I had it in mind, but it skipped out.
All right.
I think we are going in the right direction. And this curriculum should be in such a manner that every county should be able to play a bit
contextualize?
To contextualize their curriculum. Because, for example, if somebody in Turkana, they should be learning about Lake Turkana there and the pastoral community. It shouldn't be like what exactly is happening in Lake Naivasha, for example. Of course, they should know about it. They should know about it. But where you are located, it's so important that you learn about what is there in your county. And when you enhance your higher education, it keeps on coming in your mind that, this is the problem in Lake Turkana. Yes, we have on the other side the flower farms. How are they impacting us in terms of the quality of the water, in terms of the fish? What can I go back and do about it? There is oil. What can I do about it? How can I sort of eliminate my community from poverty? And how can I safeguard resources for the future generation? And that is where sustainable development comes in.
Yeah. Wow. That was very powerful. It was a good, parting shot or the last thing to say. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching us. Please kindly go ahead and share your thoughts about, what you've spoken about and what else would you like to see. We have women researchers from all over the fields, and we are going to host and bring those conversations to you. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.